like the sky, and your spirit is one with me. Your wings stand by the ocean, your eyes see everything. The slightest of your motions can make the continents ring. Yet in all your might and glory, vanished from the skies, leaving just another story, misleading man-made lies. They tell us how you fell from the sky.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Free American Hour. I'm your host, Clay Douglas. My guest today comes to us from Veterans Today, the Military Veterans and Foreign Affairs Journal. Gordonduff is my guest today. And before I bring him up, let me just give you a sample of his writing. This is linked up on the website, freeamerican.com. Israel was right all along, more right than they ever knew. Forever, Israel told us that the Arab nations couldn't be trusted, that they were ruled by duplicitous backstabbers. Now WikiLeaks has proven that right beyond question. Turns out the Arab world, all those nations we thought were preparing to attack Israel, the ones whose tanks were getting ready to roll into Tel Aviv, were actually on Israel's side. WikiLeaks tells us that since 1979, the U.S. had given Israel more than $100 billion to protect themselves from where they were actually working with Israel all along. Boy, that must be egg on America's face. I don't think so, because I don't think you'll hear about it in the news media. Hello, Gordon. How are you?
Oh, pretty good, Clay. This is good hearing from you.
Good hearing from you. Good having you on my show here. You know, you're one of the few people out there that are actually putting the truth out, that are talking, and that aren't afraid to talk about Israel. I mean, wasn't it in the Soviet Union, if you mentioned that Lenin or Marx were Jewish, wasn't it a capable offense? I mean, they put a gun to your head and pulled the trigger?
One of the little touchy areas about communism is, and even Russia to this day, communism was, and certainly the Communist Party was always Jewish. One of the things, there's almost been too much backlash. Here's what's been going on lately, because times are changing quickly in the U.S., and they're not changing in a good way necessarily. We've got this drum beating going on. Israel is demanding, and through its public relations organ known as WikiLeaks now, they had AIPAC, they own all the newspapers, the TV stations, just as Helen Thomas said. Heaven forbid should anybody try to tell the truth in this country. Well, now they want the U.S. to go to war with Iran. They're demanding we go to war with Iran, and everything is being done. Everyone who can be blackmailed and bought is being blackmailed and bought.
And let me mention Sarah Palin in there, because I was pretty shocked to hear this Tea Party patron urge us to go to war with Iran. I mean, we're already in two wars that have no reason for being there except the economic control.
Now, Clay, I'm going to irritate some of your followers here.
Good.
And you know what? I irritate enough people. I just don't care anymore. Hey, easy to find out where I live. I just don't recommend coming for me. It's not going to work out well for you. But this Tea Party stuff here, financed by a couple of Israelis, the Koch brothers, the Northern Tissue people, this phony resistance movement, which, Clay, I emailed you the donor list there, and it's a who's who of Israeli Americans funding resist.net secretly. The Tea Party, entirely funded by Israelis, and during everything that's said, the Constitution disappeared by 2002, and now In 2009, 2010, people are noticing it's gone. Habeas corpus disappeared in 2006. We lost all of our rights. It only became necessary to start talking about the Constitution when our friends in Israel were afraid that we weren't going to invade Iran for them. They owned Bush, owned him lock, stock, and barrel. He was a creature of the Israeli lobby 100%. They put him in office. He was never elected. The elections weren't even close. They were millions and millions of votes off.
His
No
father,
one voted for him.
George Bush, who gave us the whole term New World Order, was involved as CIA director, was involved with the Israeli drug cartels down there in Colombia. Operation Watchtower. They flew. They used the special forces to go down and put guide towers in to fly the planes into Bush's other partner. That was Manuel Noriega with Michael Harari as his Mossad contact there.
Oh, and this is, there aren't a lot of things I don't like to talk about, but I have more than intimate experience with that. I know all those people up front and personal.
William Tyree, you met the William Tyree who's doing life in Walpole prison now because his wife was keeping a diary.
Oh, and well, let's see where we need to, things we need to get out probably right now.
Go ahead, sir.
My warning here, and this is scares American stupidity scares the living bejesus out of me. Just dumb, and it's not just Americans. I mean, I'm the senior editor of a publication where, frankly, a good number of our staff are Jewish. Not an issue with us. We're a polyglot. We've got Islamic stuff. The former head of the ISI, General Hamid Gullah, is one of our editors. Colonel Eugene Khrushchev, Nikita's grandson, is with Veterans Today. Gilad Atzmon of Israel is. We don't care about those things. We're a veterans organization. We began looking out for the welfare of veterans, and we found the only way we could do that is to release the stranglehold that organized crime managed out of Israel, as Jeff Gates tells us over and over, has on the U.S. Well, when the Tea Party was assembled, all of this election, it's the crypto Tea Party. Not a single word about Israel out of the Tea Party, not a single word about 9/11. A 9/11 investigation. The Tea Party was established in Boston as a 9/11 truth organization. It was hijacked by Israel, repackaged, sold to Americans as something that was going to restore constitutional rights, and now works for the Israeli bankers and the state of Israel. The candidates that went in, one or two may not have, but Sarah Palin is a creature of the Israeli lobby. 100%. I am sick of Americans allowing themselves to be hoodwinked into putting people in office who will do nothing but betray them. The Israeli lobby removed 7 Jewish congressmen because they weren't pro-Israel enough and replaced them with Tea Party people who are now banging a drum about invading Iran. And let me tell you about how invading Iran is going to work for us. I don't know if we have any military experts here. I'm one of those. I can tell you, but I've seen the war plans for the invasion of Iran. There's only one way into Iran, and that's through the Pakistan province of Baluchistan. There is one port we can go in, Gwadar. We have to follow Rift Valley to Tehran. That port, the port in Jacksonville, Florida, is 40 times bigger. The only other port we have nearby is Karachi, which serves Baluchistan on a narrow gauge railway. You start getting my ideas here? And Iran has 13 million armed men, and they just don't care. There's also this other minor thing, just a little thing, not a big thing, a little thing. Iran has no nuclear weapons. They're building no nuclear weapons. We know they're building no nuclear weapons, are absolutely sure of it. Iran doesn't dislike the United States. They are no way threatening the United States in any way. They're no way threatening Israel in any way. And besides that, Israel is not only not our ally with the current extremist ultra-nationalist government in Israel, The United States has no greater enemy than the government of Israel. Now, the fact that many of the people, the majority of the people of Israel, are supporting an extremist, insane, racist government means that they've been subjected to the same kind of mind control propaganda that the American people are subjected to because they're good, decent people. But they're good, decent people like the same stupid Americans who went Islamophobic crazy, which I probably was one of at one time and am less of right now. Every bit of dumb. I can yell about dumb because I've been dumb. I'm not going to be dumb anymore. I'm going to step off the soapbox here, but it's morning. I haven't had my coffee yet. It's kind of crazy going on. Oh, here's one. This is a good rating thing here. Whether any of you know this or not, and if you haven't, go on Google. Don't take my word for it. WikiLeaks announced to the press, and heaven forbid I'm the press. I'm not the paid press, but I'm certainly the press. That WikiLeaks was going to release UFO materials held by the United States government. WikiLeaks told us that they have proof that the U.S. government has been fighting a war with flying saucer people who have a secret base. I could actually say all of this, or I could say go ahead and rent the X-Files movie, because that's pretty much the story here. They say they can prove it. And now what I've been informed by people in the Air Force, people in the White House, that there is something out there. I don't know what it is, but the U.S. government got very afraid. And the president began talking more and more about war with Iran. Then WikiLeaks this morning to the press announced, and this is, I'll take some of the credit for this, but it's not really anything they're doing for the press. This is something that WikiLeaks is doing in response to the president throwing up his hands at being blackmailed by Israel/WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks is the state of Israel. It's an intelligence operation run by the Israelis. Zbigniew Brzezinski, former national security advisor, on December 2nd pointed this out. And if you weren't in the U.S., if you were getting free news in a free country, you would be reading and hearing nothing except WikiLeaks works for Israel. You'd be seeing it everywhere. In America, WikiLeaks isn't just Israel. It's part of your Israeli Zionist press. And WikiLeaks is an enemy of the United States, as Israel is currently an enemy of the United States. Now, the new announcement that came out is that WikiLeaks is going to release 3,700 documents from the U.S. Embassy in Tel Aviv. But these documents will be about Israel. And Julian Assange says that it isn't his fault that the other WikiLeaks documents were weeded out and all the Israeli information taken out of them. He said the press did it themselves. And I'm wondering about that. If you're releasing 92,000 documents here and 75,000 there, you mean the documents you released, you, the great hero that is fighting press censorship, gave them to the press and let them censor your documents? Wake up, Mr. No Credibility. But, we're going to wait. We're going to go through these. We're going to go through these carefully. And unless we see some of what we know is in these intelligence documents, Mr. Assange, we're going to land on you like no tomorrow. It's not seen in the U.S., but Assange is running scared not because of his rape charges, but because he has been outed, thoroughly outed, as a Mossad front. Thoroughly outed. And all this theater you see is nothing but a TV show. Now, our other big enemy here is North Korea. You know, there's a story here that's been going around since 2005 about missing nuclear weapons. Have you heard anything about that stuff? Any of your other?
I have heard that there are some nuclear weapons that have been misplaced or missing, and there was half a dozen of them that were seized on the way somewhere.
Well, there's a couple of stories here. Now they came out as like internet rumors, except of course I've got a staff full of people from the National Security Council and intelligence agencies that they'll tell me about things, and a lot of friends in the military. There are 2 sets of nuclear weapons that went missing, all about the same time. And I'll try to make this a long story here and very well documented. And this is being secretly investigated in Britain right now. They're blackmailing a number of people because Britain is responsible for losing 3 nuclear weapons. Now, back in the fall, we saw on newspaper stories saying that in 1975 Israel signed a contract with South Africa, which was under apartheid-related restrictions. No one was allowed to trade with them, and Israel said they would come in and develop weapons for South Africa. Didn't go any further. The weapons that were developed, you can learn about if you look up the files, very public files of the Truth Commission, and all you have to do is to type in Truth Commission, and those documents will come up. But Israel's name will be redacted from them. And those weapons were 3 kinds. Nuclear weapons, 10 nuclear weapons. 10, not 6. Now, you say, well, South Africa didn't have nuclear weapons. No, actually, they openly admit. Our news don't report these things in the U.S. South Africa openly admits to having had 6 nuclear weapons. It's even been mentioned by President Obama. Our newspapers, he can have a speech in it. Even that gets edited out if it leads somewhere bad. And it leads somewhere bad because there were 10 nuclear weapons. They were built by Israel at the Pelindaba facility in South Africa. One was exploded on Prince Edward Island, about 600 miles south of Cape Town. It's a volcanic island, September 22nd, 1979. We picked it up on acoustic sensors. We picked it up with our Vela satellite. We know the makeup of the uranium in it. We read off our satellites the signature of the impurities, 80-second milliflash, 18.2 kilotons, a Hiroshima-sized nuke. Now, the remaining 9 nukes, the South Africans weren't going to turn them over to the black people. They, when the government was changing hands, they decided they were going to contact Britain and have those nukes picked up and gotten rid of because they weren't going to turn a nuclear arsenal over to Nelson Mandela. So the 9 remaining weapons were turned over to the British and Americans. And the people who negotiated that were UN Inspector Hans Blix, a young public servant named David Cameron, now Prime Minister, and a Dr. David Kelly. We've heard of David Kelly, haven't we?
Oh, yes. Dr. Kelly was an assassination.
And you want to know why Dr. David Kelly was assassinated? We'll tell you. Because I get called on this every day, because in Britain, now they had said he committed suicide because he was upset because Tony Blair said he was fibbing about when Kelly said there were no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Well, you've been a scientist and you've been in government for a long time. Being confronted by super clown Tony Blair, Mr. Stephen Fetchit for the moron Bush, he was a running joke the entire time he was Prime Minister. If he didn't hate you, you weren't anybody at all. What David Kelly did know about is Britain had an election coming up. Margaret Thatcher was Prime Minister, and she wanted to make sure the Tories got in. Now, this is the same time that Saddam had moved into Kuwait and was threatening people with the mother of all battles. And we were telling everybody it was going to be nuclear weapons, or something anyway. Well, what the British did, the British spent 55 million pounds and bought 3 of those nuclear weapons and stored them in Oman. The other 6 were sent to Chicago, unloaded there and taken to a facility in the U.S., disassembled. The fissionable material was machined into actually into a statuette in return for display in South Africa. The 3 weapons were shipped by Israeli-related Iran-Contra figures tied to the Bush administration. They went on a dock in Oman, were placed in public storage, 3 nuclear weapons in 20-foot containers. The shipping agent, the guy who built the cranes, one of my friends. Arms Corps was involved. The company that built the weapons. Now, I know all the people involved. Well, the weapons sat there for 18 months. People coming by, kicking dirt on it, whatever, unguarded. Then they were picked up in a ship, taken to the United States. They opened it up, and the boxes were full of concrete. The weapons were gone. We call those the whack-a-mole nukes because Israel is continually claiming that those 3 missing nukes are one place or another. Well, we know they went to Israel.
Well, the new news says Israel's got probably 400 nuclear weapons, and we got no inspection. They got no, and they didn't sign on any of the treaties, the nuclear treaties.
Well, here's the problem, Clay, is that these 3 nukes are unattributed. If an Israeli nuke goes off in New York or Baltimore, for instance, like in the movie, we know it's an Israeli nuke because it'll have the signature of the Dimona reactor on it. Well, these are unattributed. Israel has them, and they claimed initially that Saddam had them. Now they're saying that Iran has them.
Right.
But on May 6th, 2009, one of these 3 missing nuclear weapons that Israel had exploded.
Where?
In North Korea. Israel sold it to North Korea.
Incredible.
Absolutely. They sold it to North Korea. North Korea is planning to explode another one. The good news for us is that the nukes we feared would blow up an American city somewhere. I'd like to see North Korea explode 2 more of them. Then I'll know they're gone. Because North Korea isn't building nukes. They don't have the capability. They don't have
the whole nuclear scare with North Korea is directly attributable to Israel giving them the weapons to blow up?
It's a way of dancing the United States around on a string. And of course, since Israel is, poor threatened Israel, is the third largest arms exporter in the world.
Now let's talk about this. You pointed out in this first article that Israel is in bed with Saudi Arabia, and let's see, isn't the king of Saudi Arabia, the royal family of Saudi Arabia, aren't they Jewish?
Yeah, I'd probably come short of talking about that, and frankly, you could get me in a lot of trouble because I work with some of these people. You have no idea how much trouble. But if anyone that thinks that any of the nations around Israel have been a threat, when every one of those nations are governments, and these are 2-bit banana republic dictators that were put in by the United States. There isn't anybody serving in that area of the country other than Iran and Syria. And Syria is militarily very weak and very vulnerable. They have no potential for resupply. They sit on the Mediterranean and American Lake. And Iran was asking for help, and Syria said, leave us alone. We're pretty much screwed. You know, Syria's not looking for any trouble. Everyone in the Middle East, every government there, was put in with the approval of Israel. They're all U.S. puppets. You know, you look at U.S.
So it's a stage. This whole conflict in the Middle East is all staged to what? To bring us into the Third World War that Albert Pike planned and predicted with Muslims?
Well, you know, who exactly would we fight? I can't find an enemy.
Well, we didn't have an enemy in Vietnam. We didn't have an enemy in Iraq, and we certainly, unless it was those nasty old Taliban that were destroying the opium poppy crops in Afghanistan. We don't really we didn't really have an enemy there either, did we?
You understand that Israel actually speaks worse of the United States than Iran does? Anyone ever hear Iran say, "We're going to destroy America. We're going to get you"? Iran says nothing to us. Nobody says anything to us. There's one nuclear power there, Pakistan. We own Pakistan. Pakistan is America's only real military ally. They've got certainly a nuclear arsenal, although India, their blood enemy next to them, has a larger one and a huge military and is a close ally of Israel. One of the asides here, you know, things that you won't read in the papers, but Israel's been stealing American technology of all kinds for many years, and it's been doing it through the AIPAC organization. So we have been told in the lawsuit that former Security Council member Steve Rosen, former head of the RAND Corporation, who went to work for AIPAC. Now, in 2004, Rosen was arrested for spying along with other members of the Israeli lobby. The FBI had been involved in a 2-year investigation. That investigation, they arrested Rosen and Wiseman. A U.S. officer had turned informant and saved his tail. Now, Rosen and Wiseman managed to rig a lot of convictions. Rosen and I have some friends in common. I certainly don't hate the guy. A spy for Israel. But Rosen had a fat job with AIPAC, and they fired him for spying. And he's suing them, saying, how can you fire me for spying when your whole organization does nothing but spy? Now, Philip Giraldi of the American Conservative wrote about this last week. He's working more on this, I am sure, and there will be more out there, but it won't be in any of our newspapers. But
speaking of not being in our newspapers, what about the connection to 9/11 and the Pentagon, the disappearance of $2.3 trillion, while the chief financial officer was Rabbi Dov Zakheim, who went on to, after, or I guess before 9/11, to build remote control devices for our airliners?
Well, and see, I've got a lot of my Air Force buddies, they're transport pilots, and they're also airline pilots. So I've got, and it's my daily emails. I listen to the Air Force gossip. And you Air Force guys out there, nobody gossips like the Air Force does. Except for one group, the airline pilots. Oh, and now that they're being crotch searched at the airports, it's even worse. But these guys really speak up about everything, and which by the way, I thank you for doing that. So on 9/11 issues, when I'm talking to pilots about stuff, I'm not talking to some random pilot from anywhere. I'm talking to somebody from the Strategic Air Command. When they're telling me that certainly no plane hit the Pentagon. Well, we were trying to figure out what kind of plane it was or what kind of missile, and we were tracking down our plane inventory. We were thinking maybe, this is an email I got last week, that we were thinking the missile that hit the Pentagon maybe was brought in on an F-111, Now, we still had a couple of those at Nellis Air Force Base because